Hey, nowadays everyone is chasing film emulation, especially 16 and 35mm. But what's behind all that? First, we need to dissect what film emulation should mean to one another and what it could mean. Yeah, you heard that right. No film emulation is created equal. Giving emphasis to the word emulation, we could easily take a few steps back to see a bigger, broader, thought-provoking picture. If I would ask regular people who go to the cinemas, video creators that never shot on film, nor sophisticated sensors, vintage or expensive glass, seasoned DPs, colorists and praise directors, what makes a movie filmic or cinematic, all of them would give vastly different answers. Of course, upstage lighting, a high contrast ratio, color separation will be terms that will come up 100%. On the other side, I bet regular people who mostly state razor thin focus, so narrow depth of field, anamorphics, high resolution, and so on, whereas DPs would put emphasis on composition, lensing, and directors would argue blocking, aspect ratios, talent performance, and the medium from negative to lab to print is crucial. Art department would also like a word. Set design, wardrobe, and color palette are more important. And I think so too. And also give sound design credit, right? In reality, it's all of these things. It will be a blend of different flavors and ingredients that will create a filmic aesthetic, or an entirely new attempt on a contemporary look, with a few traits that pay homage to film through the incorporation of certain elements such as chromatic aberration, color shifts, distortions, remjet layer mimicking, and so on, which all evoke a feeling of nostalgia, render a certain color palette we associate with an era or movie or film stock. This is more of a subjective spin on film emulation, which is totally valid. A stark contrast to this attempt of film emulation would be a more surgical, accurate operation instead of a mixture of personal preferences. If we take a look at the technical side of it, now we are talking highlight and shadow compression, roll-off, pushing, pulling film, color rendition, white point adaptation, and the OG printer lights, of course. Grain, and in some instances, halation. And all those things should feel organic in a proper color pipeline, able to move and not break the image. Halation is a great example of how versatile and artistic film and film emulation can be used to produce a nostalgic feeling or aid a digital intermediate workflow become more realistic, simply because most of the viewers will associate visible halation on bright and contrasty areas with a movie shot on analog film without questioning the film stock used, if any has ever been used at all while capturing the scene. Given the recent developments, traditional film could lack the beloved halation artifact, since Kodak only sells the Vision 3 stocks with their new anti-halation layer from now on. The move triggered heated discussions among the entire film community. What also happened as a consequence, and this is somewhat related to film emulation and the possibilities of advanced plugins and power grades, is clever enthusiasts had bought different variations of the Vision 3 negative stock in bulk, which means they effectively sourced hundreds of 100-meter rolls of 35mm film, only to find a way to remove the anti-halation layer safely, leaving the remjet layer intact, which causes halation on film and motion pictures we all love and are used to. These resourceful people are selling Kodak's Vision 3 stock for a tenfold of the original price now. As a result, Kodak has limited disposal of their cinema film stock to a handful of suppliers who have a good reputation and assure that the film stock only will be resold to professionals within the movie business. Basically, Kodak made us creatives who work in one way or another with film or movie pictures digitally rethink what characteristics we want to see in a film stock and define a product on screen. But more importantly, this example is a broad hint calling to embrace different perspectives, opinions, and flavors of what film emulation can be. Oftentimes I feel like people are way too close-minded. I almost feel sorry for them trying to do one thing in one way only when it comes to emulating certain characteristics of film in a digital intermediate workflow, while demanding this is being the only proper way to do so. Instead of limiting oneself to one-dimensional conversion or one-to-one matches, I recently tried a lot of DCTLs on plugins for look development and also using certain attributes of film stocks in my own grades. One DCTL seems to be crown king though, simply because of the vast toolset it provides in the Pro version. It is undeniable great for emulating a film look fast and being able to manipulate it and build upon it. You probably didn't click on the title if you were not interested in Dehancer Pro or invested in film emulation in general, so here's my short disclaimer. Dehancer contacted me and did send me their software to test and review. No money exchanged hands, and the lovely people of Dehancer did not see this review beforehand, nor did they restrict my opinion about the product. However, if you like what you see today and would like to give the plugin a spin, you can try out Dehancer for a trial period or use my code Maass, M-A-A-S-S, for 10% off if you wish to purchase any license or subscription. To start off, and to be clear about it, I am no color scientist, nor have I shot any motion picture film stock in 16 or 35mm to evaluate if Dehancer's film emulation is a close match to actual film. I shot a variety of analog 35mm film stock over the past decade though. Basically, I have no clue if any combination of negative plus print stock would yield a realistic result, as I'm not comparing side-by-side images, or would be able to conform the entire lab print process. So in this specific tutorial, recognize me as a colorist with no idea what he is doing, yet I will give you a spoiler already. I really dig the image that's being produced by Dehancer. In fact, all of the B-roll you see in this video has been graded with Dehancer, but let's have a more in-depth look at Dehancer Pro and what it can do for your next project. The first thing that I appreciated when I first read about the plugin and using it is the integration within different color managed workflows and pipelines. I can use Dehancer with my regular Davinci Wide Gamut intermediate color pipeline properly, but also work in the camera's respective log space when I want to. You can also work in the display referred color space such as Rec. 709. So this is a stark contrast to most pro grades which only function in a specific timeline working color space. To put this into practice today, I will work with some 2100 HLG clips from an Osmo Pocket 3. We also got D-Log M, also from an Osmo Pocket 3, which kind of represent a highly desaturated flavor of a Rec. 709, and we establish a WG color pipeline. Okay guys, so let's have some fun and play around with Dehancer. Let us find a clip that we would want to grade. Actually, I would prefer taking this clip from a recent wedding that I shot. As you can see, we have a color space transform, so our ODT brings us from Davinci Wide Gamut intermediate to Rec. 709 Gamma 2.2, and when you click on the pre-clip level, we will see that there's also a color space transform which brings us from Sony FX3 to Davinci Wide Gamut intermediate. So clip level is clean, timeline level is clean. We strictly work with the postscript level. My intended DRT is also disabled, so don't worry about this node. Yeah, let's have some fun. Just click on the empty node under Effects. I hope this panel shows up. If not, make sure you're in the Color tab and click on Effects. And there you can search the entire library. So let's drop Dehancer on our empty node. Wow, okay. This is to be expected. That's what I meant when I told you that it's quite intimidating the first time you use this plugin, because some features are enabled, as you can see, and also the input is wrong. I switched this to Davinci Wide Gamut intermediate right away, which makes it a bit better, but I would suggest you scroll down there. Don't pay attention to any setting. Just go to Options, set the quality to high for a good preview, and then click on Disable All Tools. Bam. Much better. So what would I do with this image? Well, I tell you what I do. I would establish my base look. I really enjoy Dehancer's 2383 spin. It's a great baseline. As you can see, it's a bit too much, but we can scroll down to output and just lower the intensity. Yeah, that looks quite good. So this could be your starting point for your journey. You can also grade underneath Dehancer, which is really awesome. Other plugins or power grades don't allow it because they modify the image or the colors and tone so much that you will break the image easily. And that's quite something that's worth mentioning. With Dehancer, artifacting is not happening that much, except for one thing that we will have a look right now inside the print tab. The print tab offers a few features that I really enjoy. If you have a look at the waveform, I love to play with the tonal contrast. It really gives this oomph to a picture. So don't dial it in too much, just a bit, and it works its magic. So regarding breaking and wrecking the image, color density is such a great method to add. To add is the wrong verb to use in the context of saturating an image, because you can add, but you can also subtract saturation from an image. And color density is a subtractive method to saturate your image. So if you crank this up, some of you will probably see nothing. But one thing that I will see, and this is also valid for every bright light. Do you see this red hue on the underdress of this man? If I lower this, so to speak, I will add saturation. And oftentimes this will lead to more luminance within the colors, which we don't want for that filmic look. Pay attention to when I add color density, it will get really red. And if we have some traffic lights or some really bright lights, those will break. I guarantee you. I don't have any reference frame for a really bright light right now, but be aware. And if you see breakage, it's most probably the color density slider. I will also just park this at maybe 7, something like that. So there's still some luminance going on, but not too much. Yeah, that's quite it. You can also take the analog range limiter, but I would be aware that this really lifts up and flattens out the image. So once I click this, you can see also in the waveform that the image is not expanded anymore. It's rather compressing. Always keep this in mind. If your image doesn't have the highest ratios when it comes to contrast, I would take a step back and leave this unticked. Now, let's go back to the top and start from here. So let's close down the film tab because we will play with it on a further stage. We can also close the developer. I don't think that's necessary. We get back to the developer when we go to Rec 709 or HLG image because it's originally intended for this. If you have a look at the Dehancer manual, especially the gamma correction slider is quite handy for footage that you don't know the color space of. Just for demonstration purposes, I can, sorry, it doesn't work if I don't slide the contrast. So if I increase the contrast and I have no clue what source image is or if it's exposed correctly, but I can eyeball it in the waveforms, then I could go to the gamma correction, just drop my gamma. It's pretty similar to the gamma wheel, where you drop your middle gray. But yeah, that's a topic for Rec 709 if we may use it. Film compression, that's really interesting. Because what film compression does in this image, it compresses those highlights for a smoother roll-off. We can also adjust the impact if it's too strong or too subtle. Actually, I think 60, the default, is a bit too strong. Maybe drop it a smidge. Also, let's check the white point. What does it do? Okay, I still enjoy some dynamic range on the top. Yeah, let's park it here because if you go over 100, it really roll off. You can see this. Yeah, so just park it beneath 100. That's fine. Now, tonal range is a slider I really love. It's so simple to add some more dimension to your image. I freaking love this slider. It does a lot to your image as it grabs onto the meat of the image and just puts it wherever you want. So if you go to the left hand side, you will push the midtones and highlights up, and to the right side, you will just drop it like gamma, but they also take into account the highlights. You have to find a balance between impact and tonal range to get to your desired look. This looks fine. Color density. Remember that I showed you the color density slider in the print module? We also got the color density slider in the film compression module. Whatever you do here doesn't have much of an impact as it has when you're done printing and you got your final look and then you try to saturate your image again. So just be mindful of this. You see it's really subtle. I cannot see much effect at all. So we'll just set it back to default, 50% or 50, expand. Yeah, it does what it says. It expands your image. This is terrific for images that lack contrast, that are rather flat, or you couldn't dial in your contrast ratios properly. You can enable this, and you can pinpoint your blacks and your whites, which is really awesome. Actually, a lot of tools are either straightforward and represent some kind of lift gamma gain, but they are still sophisticated enough that you will see much more of a pleasing visual result than just lowering the contrast or increasing the contrast. It also has a strong effect on the color rendition, and it just does something really, really specific to those highlights and shadows. Even if I lower down the shadows, and you can see in the waveform, some of them are almost crashing, but if I go inside this image, you see there's still some detail, and I really, really love this. Now to the white point, I will probably lower it just a bit. Yes. So I am not lowering the white point, I'm lowering the slider, because I really dig this contrasty image. Perfect. All right, the print tab, that's done. So color head, those are your printer lights, your RGB bars. So this red hue is not natural. So I would correct this with a node prior to Dehancer. But in this case, we can try to fix it easily with the color head option. Let's try to fix this. So enable the color head, and we have to dial in our magenta, that's for sure. So reduce magenta just a bit. Wow. Yeah. I have to zoom out. That looks gorgeous. Yeah. Wow. I didn't expect this to be such a quick remedy, but I think it is. In this case, target white could be also a great adjustment, because with target white inside the print module, you can adjust your whites to be a specific white point for daylight. Something between D55 and D65. D60 meaning staying neutral. Actually, maybe they're expanding to D75 or D45. I would need to look it up. If you feel like your image is too warm, you can easily adjust it with the target white. And from my experience, target white is a real clean adjustment, because it doesn't mess up all the color information as adjusting the color temperature would do to your image. So if I would want to have a more neutral image, I would just put my slider to the right, which would mimic some D65 point. This looks great. I love it. Furthermore, the single most impressive thing that I've seen Dehancer do is adding organic film grain. It's so good. Now let's go full screen. There's a bit too much. I always prefer to go to the custom settings, go to film type, and strictly choose positive, because negative almost looks like those Lightroom grain effects. So I choose positive. And most of the time you will see me lowering the size and the amount just a bit. This looks really good. I dig this. And if you fancy, you can even adjust the grain structure inside the shadows, midtones, highlights. And you can, of course, adopt the chroma. If we zoom in to those highlights, you can really see that it's changing the grain. So grain is present, grain is non-present. So you can really dial in the amount that you want to. I feel like this is a really nice look and such fantastic grain. Okay, this could be our final look. Just a regular Davinci White Gamut to Rec. 09 conversion from S-Log 3. I mean, look at that. This looks awesome. And you can do this in a pinch. If you're familiar with Dehancer and how it works, and you have done it a few times, you can establish a base look or even the final grade within a few minutes. I mean, I'm just rambling and talking and getting off track, but if I would be focused and you really need to dial in the look, give me 2 minutes. Of course, I filmed those clips myself, and if I would do this, I expect some kind of footage that's already probably exposed and pretty balanced to get so far, so quick. So we touched film grain. Another favorite of all those users is bloom and halation. Of course, they are drop dead gorgeous as well, but you have to use them sparsely. Anyway, if you enable bloom, you see what's going on with those windows. Yeah, it's lighting up. So it's getting rid of some contrast, which is okay. But you will see it on those benches. Enable, disable. So let's get back out and just lower down the amplifier. So if you apply bloom, always question yourself, how much is too much? Because bloom added to your image in a wrong way will instantly break your image. I guarantee you this. Halation. You see what it does? I mean, we have so many light sources inside the image. If I dial in halation, everything will turn yellow. So bad thing I could do is go to custom mode, enable it, set the impact to 100, and then we go to amplify and just boost this halation. Now global and local diffusion. This is where you want to dial in your effect. So local and global diffusion, those are the sliders where you establish the borders in which the effect happens. And when I crank up local diffusion, what we see is those glorious light artifact from the remjet layer of the film stock around bright highlights and sharp edges that result in contrast. So that's where we want to have halation, if any. Don't go overboard, as I told you. If I enable and disable it, you can see that halation is only affecting those windows. And we can also lower down the global diffusion if we want to, but we can also play with the source limiter. Because the source limiter is the defining factor how big of a light source and how strong it has to be until the effect becomes visible. Maybe we can play with the smoothness just a bit. Actually, that didn't look as bad when I dialed it in, but now it looks way overpowering. So what we do is lowering the impact yet again. So my system takes just a few seconds to adjust to the sliders. Now off and on, off and on. Maybe dial it back just a bit. Yeah, there we go. So we have bloom, we have halation, we have film grain, everything you guys love. Film damage, film breath, gate weave, yeah. I mean, gate weave is super cool. It really emulates the film when it's going through the projector, so it's just jumping. If you're really digging like the Super 16, Super 8 look or some archival footage, I would probably enable it. Film breath is a cool option. I'm not the right person to explain it to you what it does, but if I'm not mistaken, film breath analyzes the entire image and it combines adjacent pixels with different color informations and is blending them together with a bigger blob of colored pixels. So it's kind of a hue compressor, if you will. Maybe that makes sense to you guys. And something I totally forgot by dialing in the look, the false color. Really great tool. Dehancer also offers the monitor, which is a free DCTL, but inside Dehancer Pro, you get the false color. I've run several reference images with the false color applied, and it seems pretty accurate. It's a lovely tool. It's really quick. If you enable false color, you can dial in your lift gamma gain or your contrast really easily by having a visual representation of what the dynamic range inside the frame looks like. Of course, if there's no dynamic range at all in the frame from the beginning, it's hard to get a contrasty look. It doesn't look like the image is breaking. What else? LUT generator. This is quite cool. If you save your project and you have this node and your final grade that you want to establish in Dehancer, it's totally fine to just go down there to the LUT generator, export a LUT with your look. But be aware that all those effects like halation, bloom, grain, those will not be included in LUT. This can't be represented by a color matrix, but it's good for monitoring if you already know what your final look will be. So we have done this look extensively. I've grouped those clips, as I told you. Looks dope. I friggin' love it. This is... what do we have here? I'm a bit confused. Oh, look at this. I know what happened. I grouped the wrong clips. Yeah, This is just a flower texture. And this is a clip from Madeira that I accidentally grouped within the wedding ceremony. Stupid me. Yeah, but this has to look applied. Wow. As I told you, sometimes you just slap on the Dehancer, it looks great right out of the box. But if we really feel playful today, we could also go to the negative film stock, apply it, and what is happening here? What's going on? To explain it easily to you, we just work with a print stock, which in its nature applies a specific S-curve to your source footage to boost contrast and stuff like that. And what this curve has been designed to do is to offset, to neutralize the negative stock. So if I apply a negative stock, what happens is I've got a more balanced image than before. Now you can play with some stocks. Actually, what also is happening, if you look at the stock family, what should happen, what should be expected to be happen is that no matter what Vision 3 I choose, you see those are 200T, T for tungsten, 250D, D for daylight, 500T for tungsten again. And those should, 200 and 500T line up much more than I expected, because if I go to 250D and 50D again, you see that those Ds line up, but the Ts don't. Traditionally in negative film, especially in film families, if you have a look at the entire film stocks that are available within Vision 3, they shouldn't derive so much from one another. They should be more similar. I think it's a result of the top to bottom approach on film emulation. So, as you know, film emulation is a digital process. You may have some reference images, but you cannot mimic a photochemical process. At least I don't know of any film emulation that does. But don't worry if they don't align like they would organically do. You got so many film stocks in here, so many negatives to choose from. I mean, a simple combination that I often do, and let's find out if it also looks great on the wedding clips, is I would just go back to Kodak. Actually, Kodak 160 NC looks quite awesome. I really dig this look. Other favorites for me are Kodak Actor 100, Actor Chrome. Actually, I shot this in Africa a ton, also go 200. Man, I miss those times. Fuji Film Eterna, really great stock. Love it. Back to the look I always dig. That's Kodak Vision 3 50D. And just pair it with the Fujifilm 3513, which, that doesn't look too shabby. I really like it, because normally you should really stick to one family. So if you choose Kodak here, you would choose a Kodak negative film. And if you choose Fuji, you would choose a Fuji. But this combination of Fujifilm 3513 with certain Kodak stocks really looks great. I mean, you've always had those green shifts. That's totally normal. Yeah, looks great. We got pretty off track. Really love the results Dehancer gives, Okay, back to another image. What do we do? Oh, well, I grouped this with the wedding clip. Yeah, it looks dope. So if we disable the negative, I mean, you can try anything. You can also go to the Endura Glossy, which takes the edge off because it's not that contrasty. It maintains those midtones way better in the scenario without adjusting any knobs or sliders. Okay, let's get to another image. Yeah. The usual suspect, every slider is activated. So again, scroll down, disable all tools, go to high. But we still need to set it to Davinci White Gamut Intermediate. And then we establish a basic look. Now with some Fujifilm. And we adjust target white. Tonal Contrast. Yeah, that does a lot for us. I love this bokeh, by the way. It's the new Sigma 17-40. Really love this lens. Let's skip this one. I mean, this is S-Log 3. We already graded it. It has so much dynamic range, so much information within the log file, so we can easily craft some dope looks. Let's get to something more fun. Yeah, let's go to those clips taken in the Dolomites. By the way, that's my Doxy, my Dachshund. Teddy. He's a good boy. Yeah, let's do this image because I horribly messed up. All right, this is HLD. So we got the transformation from 2100 to 709. Well, I didn't mess up horribly. I had this variable ND filter on the Osmo Pocket. I believe it only got like 4 stops of ND, so not sufficient enough for this bright scenario, which is why those clouds are frigging clipping. Let's not grade on the clip level. Let's go to the group post clip level, because we have some other clips in the group. Maybe they will look fine too. So again, we are in DaVinci White Gamut Intermediate. Scroll down, high, disable all tools, and establish a base look. First, what looks good? What looks good for nature? Kodak Endura glossy paper. That looks fine. So let's activate force color, and we see almost everything up there is clipping in the clouds. So we have not much of a contrast. I mean, we're lacking so many stops below middle gray for an attractive image. So let's work on it. We can go to, let's play with the exposure. Actually, we didn't touch on this yet. This is strictly for the source image. So in this case, we have no log footage, but we're working underneath the grade. So prior to applying the film emulation, so we can easily try to play with the exposure compensation. Normally I would do this inside the HDR tools within Davinci Resolve for photometric stops, which are accurate. What can we do? We can dial this back a bit. So we pretend that we haven't clipped those clouds, but I'm pretty sure we clipped those clouds. Now with film compression, that's something we would want to enable because of the highlights inside the sky. Yeah, it immediately cools them off. That brings us closer to a more pleasing image, I think. Yep. Play with the contrast. We need more contrast. This looks good. Now, gamma correction, that's a slider that I've talked about before. But now we have source footage, and it's not properly exposed. Maybe the camera was a limiting factor regarding the dynamic range, or we didn't know how to expose, or we don't even know if the source material is correctly accounted for. So we drop middle gray by a lot, and we can play with some color boost. Yes, color boost looks fine. Now, film compression, I didn't touch the impact. I don't want to play with the impact that much. I mean, the image is clipped, as the waveform clearly indicates. It's totally clipped. There's no information in there. So we still maintain the brightness. No one has to see that there's no information in there. So we just keep it bright. Why not? Tonal range. Don't want to go that bright. So back to 30. Maybe drop it just a bit. So expanding the image. This is also a great option for this particular image, because we don't have enough in the shadows. We need more of the meat in the shadows. Yes, much better. White point, we don't need any adaptation. Just keep it bright. Why not? Color density, no, this should give some results. Yeah, especially if you look in the sky. I love when the sky is not that bright. If you dial back the luminosity, that's what we do if we increase the density. That's funny. Target white cannot be adjusted in a Rec 709, or is it because of Kodak Endura glossy paper? Yeah, it is. It is. Okay, we leave it as is. Grain, of course. Okay, looks fine. Now, what I would also like to enable is bloom around the edges, so they look super cool. My MacBook, I got an M1 Pro, and I thought it's fast. It's not. It's not if you apply a DCTL. Yeah, looks great, doesn't it? Boom. I wish we could increase some of those higher midtones, but we can't. I mean, this is kind of a limitation of Dehancer, but always keep in mind that with Dehancer, it's a film emulation plugin. It's not the plugin where you do specific changes to your image. You do broad strokes and you establish a great looking image with a few sliders, a few clicks. But if you're not happy with the midtones, you need to adjust them with different tools inside DaVinci Resolve. We want to increase the contrast just a bit. Much better. And we can play with the pivot, which is our middle gray. And I'm aware that I'm ignoring where my middle gray should be in the DaVinci White Gamut, which is 0.336. But I don't care. I just want the image to look good, and it looks way better. So yeah, this subtle control I mean, you could also use lift gamma gain, but those granular changes that you want to make to specific areas to your image, you cannot do in Dehancer because, well, you got a contrast slider, but it does more than one thing under the hood. Yeah, for dialing in those specific changes, I would encourage you to still grade underneath, which you can still do. And I mean, this is the HLG footage, and you can pretty much do whatever you want with it. No look, just straight conversion from HLG to Davinci White Gamut to Rec 709 Gamma 202. Bam, look applied. Day and night. I love it. I love it. Maybe our grade also looks good on other clips. What's cooking, Teddy? Let's check if we can adjust. Oh yeah, we dialed down the exposure. We didn't need to. Temperature compensation, maybe just a bit. So what else do we got here? Yeah, we have contrast boost. That's way too much for this clip. Gamma correction. I would rather enjoy it being kind of neutral. This clip is not that much overexposed. Nothing's clipping right there. Color separation really is subtle, but again, we're in the film developer. It's to be expected. The color boost. Wow. Holy smokes. Yeah, that's much better, right? I think the greens are still overwhelming. But if I change the negative, we still got a lot to do. Maybe Fuji. I mean, I'm just playing around right now. To make things quick, we can enable entire modules and see what's happening right there. So color boost, too much going on. With Fuji, we can crank that contrast again. Let's find the mid gray. Mid gray, yeah, it looks great there. And if we fancy, we can offset our strong contrast with Fuji Pro. Traditionally, if you would push and pull film, you would also have a contrast and an exposure change, and you should balance both. I don't know if they do it automatically or try to emulate that, but for most part, I would stay away from push and pulling. So just by setting up the target white, I forgot that we chose another film stock, and we can now adjust target white, which is of great help. We can basically eliminate our saturation. Yeah, I mean, maybe just a touch. Yeah, much better. I mean, yeah. That's a great look for a social media post or an outdoor campaign or something like that. Really love the color contrast in here and how the blue pops. Color slice tool. This is so much better. Just a tiny adjustment. Actually, you see how bright the highlights are. So what we can do is adjust our white points when it comes to film compressions. At least for this clip. I mean, we just graded the other clip and adopted it or applied it in the group. So we're messing up the other clip right now. So we can expand the white point, which means we are rolling off more of the white. You can also increase the impact and just have a look and just see it in the waveform. Also white point. I think I expanded a bit. And if I go to the right, I will lower the white points. Okay, we got D-Log-M right here. So what we can do as well is just drop the answer on it. Choose their interpretation or their model of D-Log-M. Yeah, goes still overboard. And now we work ourselves down from top where everything is enabled. So do we want the film look? Yeah, maybe just leave it enabled. I see, oh, wow, the whites are crushing. So we need film compression for sure. Yeah, that helps a bit. But you see what's also going on? This warm cast in the highlights is now bleeding into the clouds because we compressed the highlights. So if we would expand it again, it would get rid of the warm tones. What do we do? What do we do here? I don't know. Let's just find out. Let's be creative. Let's just enjoy the journey. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? So expand. What do we need to expand? We don't need to expand the white points, so we just lowered it a bit, and this also rolls off the highlights. Now we don't have any real black points. We will lower them by a ton to establish some contrast. Yeah, that starts to look good. And we just dial in some contrast ourselves. Why not? Because we can, right? What happens if we dial back the exposure later on? You see the highlights stay clipped. If we do this in the beginning, just a bit, there's still information in there. Do you see this? Tremendous effort on saving this image. Did you see what I just did there? I mean, I'm proud of myself that I thought about it. D-Log-M, it's not a real log format, but it's a strong desaturated Rec 709 image with more latitude than a regular Rec 709 image. So we could save those bright highlights, which is awesome, but we also lowered our middle gray, and as a result, our shadows are way too contrasty. So I dialed in the black point here. I will lift it again so we can see in there. What do I don't like the gray, and it's too much. In this instance, we just take it off. Halation, we don't need it here. Blue, maybe just a bit. I love what it does to the waves. Look at this. Yes, sir. Film damage off, film breath off. Let's get back. Color density, we didn't touch this. Maybe we should. Place in our favor regarding sky and ocean. That's okay. I don't want to get those shadows too dark because I always like some details in there. Yeah, there's a cloud, but there's not much information going on, so we don't need that. Just get rid of the cloud. Bam. Okay, so film developer. Do we need more contrast? Probably not. We leave it at default. Gamma correction, we also don't need much because if we lower the... again, gamma correction only works if we have negative or positive contrast boost activated. So we can disable this plugin. Yeah, that's our look. How do you like it? Looks great, right? So on, off. Considering all the choices and tools you have, Dehancer really is a go-to for quick turnaround times. If you strip all the texture related elements Dehancer has to offer just for the color effect, you will be stunned. You can create clean modern looks with this plugin in no time, which screams commercial look, as well as timeless pieces that feel nostalgic. Playing with those sliders and just experimenting or even combining the plugin with nodes upstream is super cool and fun. Truth is, you don't need to have a clue of what you are doing, the results speak for themselves. For a lot of my recent paid gigs where I used Dehancer over the past 30 days, I oftentimes found myself not using the entire ensemble of the suit, even if powerful. More often than not, I simply elevated my image with the print module in seconds to establish a baseline look. Dehancer's interpretation of 2383 really brings this color tonality, palette, contrast and roll-off back into existence we all remember when we adopted a DI process before printing back on film. To come full circle and back to my initial thoughts on film emulation, emulating the rendering top-down will get you interesting results and shouldn't surprise or discourage any user if the outcome doesn't align perfectly with what a photochemical process would look like if the image had been captured on satellite film. It will never be a one-to-one match, given the fact that film emulation had one particular reference image in mind when it had been first created. Plus, users simply neglect the fact that photochemical reaction is an organic process, whereas we modify an image on an entire digital pipeline now. A lot of elements will check our boxes or what we desire in a film emulation, but it does not necessarily mean I will want a clinical result. Instead, I simply adore the hiccups that may occur or imperfections that show up from the use of these tools, which give me quite a unique result. And this final image, I oftentimes like a lot. Combine that with all the possible variants of an image you can generate alongside my other most used elements from the Pro version like film compression, film developer, halation, blue, and grain algorithm. Man, just enjoy the colorways that you can craft and experiment with. So what is left to be desired when it comes to Dehancer? I think most critique is directed toward a true one-to-one representation of what film stock A does to a digital negative, which is just the interpretation, while also modeling what film stock B would like when it's printed with the thick negative in mind. I mean, it's an apples to orange comparison, photochemical versus digital workflow. Every time I use a plugin, I rather see it as a customizable look library for quick results. Let's be honest here, Dehancer is a film emulation plugin with a few tricks up its sleeve that dive in some aspects of look development. Also, when disabling all the tools and elements and then just turning on the negative to positive film emulation, the result oftentimes feels straight out of the box overwhelming. The interpretation of the source material, even if exposed spot on, meaning middle gray is exposed properly, yields a way to, let's call it, experimental image. On one hand, this is to be expected with a top top-to-bottom approach and film scanning for reference. On the other hand, I really embrace this cranked up far too much image for dialing in the right amount of juice and finding exciting combinations. I'm sure I'm not the only one who has a love-hate relationship with this one, so thanks for adding the impact slider. That's why I oftentimes find myself just using Dehancer as a quick fix to establishing rich, contrasty film attributes by only applying the print process to an image in a low intensity. Generally speaking, Dehancer has an incredible number of options and possibilities. Almost too many for people not familiar with the experience or knowledge of negative to print workflow. Their manual is brilliant though and gives a lot of answers, but you really need to spend some time with the plugin and learn it if you haven't used a similar tool. The possibilities are endless. You can combine so many film stocks and tools, granular adjustments from every tool inside the Pro version. It's quite overwhelming at first, but I treat it more like a playground with almost no boundaries until I'm happy with the image. I don't care if the image is a one-to-one emulation because I really enjoy the results I get within a few minutes messing around. It's really cool. Even though I only use it for a month now, I really see a lot of tools becoming a staple in my color pipeline for a lot of projects in the future. What I really enjoy as a user is that I can subscribe to or buy certain aspects of the Pro suite. For instance, I can pick Halation, Bloom or Grain for a reduced price instead of buying the entire set of tools, if I only feel like I need those to get the job done. It's clear that for me, Dehancer is going to be an inherent part of my workflow in the future, especially the organic grain, which is to die for. I also adore the blooming effect a lot, if used sparingly. I feel like those texture-related functions alone are worth it, as they are huge time savers in conjunction with adjusting mid-details. Oh, and if you're wondering if you can also use Dehancer for grading photos, definitely. It may be not the most intuitive way inside Davinci Resolve, especially when mixing vertical and horizontal photos on the timeline, but it's possible. If you're curious how this works, I might come back to the topic in a later episode, so just leave a comment down below and we will figure this out. A more convenient option though would be their mobile app, which is available also for iOS, and it's super clean and fast. I will make use of the mobile app in an upcoming video about the Dolomites, so stay tuned for that. So thank you for sticking with me until the end. I hope you learned something today, or maybe got some inspiration of what you can do with Dehancer, or even with some notes inside Davinci Resolve. So thank you for checking out this video, and I'll see you in the next.